making this bracelet using a braided leaf pattern with our leaf duos. Check out the list of materials below and we'll get started. We're going to start with 3 different colors of the leaf duos. You can start with more or less colors. You can always change this up, but I find that 3 looks really nice in the design. It's also easy to teach. I also have some 11-0 Miyuki seed beads. I'm going to pick up one of these seed beads with my needle and let it go down towards the end of my thread. So I've got about 5 feet of thread here, and I'm just stopping my bead just about 6 inches or 4 inches or so from the end. I'm going to take my needle and go back through that bead, making that my stop bead. So you'll see as I pull this thread, it just goes around the bead so that the bead doesn't fall off when I move my thread around. I'm going to start by picking up one of my leaves, and I'm going to go through the bottom hole. So if you look at the leaf, the way that the leaves are here, you have this vein impression on both sides. So there really isn't a top and a bottom, a side with the detail and a side without the detail. So we have to pay attention to how it's pointed. So if you look at the tip here, the tip of the leaf, it's either pointed to the right or the left. So here, if I do this, you can see that this leaf tip here is pointed to the left, and this one here is pointed, it's curved to the right. So what I'm going to do as I work is I'm going to keep the leaf tips pointed towards the center of my project. So they're going to be pointed either to the right or the left, depending on what side they are, and pointed towards the center of the project, instead of curving outwards like this and pointing away from the project. I'm going to pick up my first bead here, and I'm going to go through this bottom of the leaf. I'm going to go through the bottom hole here, so that as I'm coming out here, I'm coming out on the side here. And I've got my bead, the way that my bead is now oriented, it's sort of swooping upwards here. So I'm coming out on the side where my leaf here at the tip is swooping upwards. I'm going to pick up one of my seed beads, and then I'm going to pick up my another color of my leaf duo, and I want it to be oriented so that it is also sweeping inwards towards the center of my project. And if I put the bottom of my leaf here up against the side of this previous leaf, then I'll see exactly how to pick it up. I'll go through this bottom hole here of my leaf. And when I say bottom, just the one that's opposite of the point. There's a hole here going through the bottom of the leaf, and one here going through the top, kind of through the tip where it's skinnier. I'm going to pick up another 11-0, and then on my previous leaf here, the gold one, I'm going to go through that skinnier hole, or through that hole on the tip of my leaf, through that skinnier portion, and give this a pull. You're going to have a little bit of loose thread because your your seed beads here aren't going to completely cover the thread, and that's okay. So when you pull this thread tight, you'll see that you'll just be able to orient. I'm going to pull my thread through there a little tighter. You'll be able to orient your leaves, so you've got your leaf kind of swooping up, and then the one next to it that we just added is also swooping upwards. Take your needle and thread And we're going to pick up 2 seed beads, and then we're going to pass through our stop bead and continue through the hole in our first leaf bead, through the seed bead, through the hole in our second leaf bead, and these are LeafDuos, so they have 2 holes in them. And now we're coming out through this bottom hole here on the second leaf bead. I'm going to pick up my next color, and I'm going to put my leaf in position. So again, I want the bottom here of my leaf bead to sit along the side here of the bead that I just added. So that's this pink bead right here. And then that's in position. And of course, I've also got it kind of swooping upwards, swooping up towards the center of my project. So now I'm going to pick up a seed bead and go through that bottom hole of my leaf bead, my LeafDuo, pick up another seed bead, and now I'm going through the top hole of the bead that I'm attaching it to. So for me here, that's the pink bead. I'm going to pick up 3 seed beads and go through the bottom hole of my bead, through the seed bead, through the bottom hole of this third LeafDuo that I added. And now I'm coming out in position here to add another leaf. So my next leaf color is going to be this gold, this amber color. And I'm going to lay this bead right where I want it. So again, I have it swooping upwards towards the center of my project. And this is the opposite of what I want. I don't want it to be swooping outwards. Now you can of course play around with that and try that, but for this design here, I want them all facing so they're sort of swooping upwards. And I want the bottom here to sit along the side of the one that I'm attaching it to. So coming out of this bottom hole in my leaf bead here, I'm going to go through the bottom hole of the new bead that I'm adding. Throw up my seed bead, pick up a seed bead here, and then go through that leaf. And again, picking it up so it's oriented so that it's swooping upwards, pick up a seed bead and go through that top hole of the bead I'm attaching to. Pick up 3 seed beads, go through the bottom hole of this bead and through the next seed bead, through the bottom hole of the bead that I just attached. And if I orient it this way, you can see this is how I attached it here. First, I put it here in position to make sure it was where I needed it and it was oriented correctly. I attached it, and now it is sitting here, and I'm ready to add the next bead. So you can see here now I have a pattern forming, and I'm going to continue to add beads, add my LeafDuo beads and seed beads until I get this to the length that I need it. I'm doing a simple pattern here of my shiny gold, my pinkish bead, and then my matte gold. So I'll do shiny gold, pink, matte. So my matte bead will be here, or not my matte, but my pink bead will go here. And the reason why I chose 3 is because if you do 2, then you're always going to have the same color bead on the right or the left. I like alternating them, so if you do 3, you're going to alternate them being on the right or the left. So continue here adding these beads until you get to the length of bracelet that you need, and then we'll continue working on this, adding some detail, and then eventually, of course, we'll add the clasp. Once you have the length of your bracelet where you want it, we're going to continue here building up our border and giving this a little bit more structure, because right now it's going to be a little bit flimsy, so we're going to add some more structure to this. I've ended here in position to add another leaf. Since this is the end, of course, I'm not going to add another leaf, and I'm going to continue building my border. So here, coming out of the bottom hole of this last leaf, I'm going to pick up 3 of my seed beads and go through the hole on the top here. And I'm going to pick up 4 seed beads here on the other side. And I'm going to go through the seed bead that is right below where I am, coming out, sort of spanning between my first and my second bead here. So I'm going through the seed bead that I added on my last, on this last step here. And now I'm going to connect to the next seed bead below that, that's sitting between my second and my third bead. I'm going to pick up 3 seed beads and connect to that next seed bead. And if I give that little tug here and pull that tight, you'll see that'll fill in the gaps here where you had exposed thread. Go through the top hole here of that third bead, and we're going to go through the 3 seed beads here that I have on the side of my third bead. I'm going to pick up 1 seed bead here and connect to the seed bead that's already in my project. Pick up 3 seed beads and then connect and pass through the seed bead below that. So now I'm going to use these same steps here all the way down the rest of my project. So one more time here, I'm going to go through the tip here, through that top hole of my bead, pass through the seed beads, the 3 of them that are along the side, pick up 1 seed bead, pass through the seed bead that's already there, pick up 3 seed beads, and pass through the next seed bead that I already have here that I added in the last step. And doing that, I will fill in the gaps here running along the outside. Now I'm going to do the same on the other side here. First, I'm going to continue doing this side, and then I will show you here when I get to the end. I'm going to kind of, oops, here when I get to the end here, I'm going to go around the end and up the other side. Now I am all the way down to the last, or the first leaf bead here. This is the first leaf bead that I picked up, and it is the last one here on this side. And I've got my stop bead down here as well. So I finished adding the extra border to one side, and now I'm ready to move on to the next side. So I'm going to take my needle and thread and go through the 3 seed beads here at the very end of my project, including that stop bead. And then I'm going to pick up some beads. Probably about 5 is what you'll need, but you can sort of eyeball it here. 4 or 5. Looks like I actually may need 7. Let me grab 7. And I just want to come around the edge or the end here of my LeafDuo and meet up with, ooh, I think 8. Okay, 8. I was really off on that. So I need 8 beads. If you see here, I need 8 beads to go all the way around, and then I pass through that seed bead there between my first and my second bead here. So now we're back to following the pattern that we did on the other side, but it's going to be a little bit backwards here. I'm coming out of this seed bead here now between the first and the second. So I'm going to pick up 1 seed bead and go through my 3 that are already attached to my bead. And now I'm going to go through the LeafDuo, and I'm going to go through the seed bead. And so here's what I mean by it's going to be a little bit backwards. So now I'm going to pick up my beads in the opposite order that I picked them up in before. I'm going to pick up 3 seed beads and connect to the seed bead above. And now I'm going to pick up 1 seed bead and pass through the 3 beads along the outside of my duo bead. So it's creating the same border, but I'm just picking them up in the opposite direction, or yeah, the opposite order here, since I'm now sort of going up instead of going down. I'm going to pass through my bead, my leaf bead. I'm going to go through this 11-0 here that's sitting between the beads and pick up my 3 beads, pass through the next seed bead sitting between my leaf duos, and now pick up 1 seed bead and pass through the 3 seed beads sitting along the side of the leaf. And so when I do that there, you can see I'm filling in those beads in the same way, just sort of doing it the opposite direction. And of course, now I'm ready to go through the tip of, or the top here of my leaf bead and continue with my border. So I'm going to continue and then show you the next steps. After finishing the border on both sides here, you're going to have this is the very, very end here, and you're going to have the very last LeafDuo, just like I had on the other side, is going to be a little bit different just because you don't have that other LeafDuo here, so your seed bead pattern is a little bit different. Coming out of the 11-0 here, I'm just going to pick up 3 or 4 seed beads, and 4 I think is going to do it, and connect and pass through those 3 seed beads on the side of the leaf and pull that tight. And now I've covered the side of my leaf and any thread that was exposed there. So that first and the last leaf here, they'll have a little bit of a different pattern just because, like I said, you don't have that leaf, the other leaf attached here, and you don't have a leaf attached down here. So now that the border, this green border here, is complete, we're going to work on adding another layer to our border. I want to start using, or I'm going to use in this next step, only the seed beads, the 2 11-0 seed beads in between each of our pairs of LeafDuos. So here, this LeafDuo pair here, I have an 11-0 right here and right here. And if I go down, you can see I've got an 11-0 right here and right here. So they are the 11-0s that I picked up when I was attaching one LeafDuo to the next. So I'm only going to work with those on this step. So now I'm going to get in position here to start. I'm going to take my needle and thread and go through my LeafDuo and through all 5, or probably 4, all 4 seed beads here on the side of my leaf. And I'm not going through the 11-0 that was used to attach my leaf bead. So I'm ignoring that one for now because I haven't started this this section or this this part of it yet. I'm just getting myself in position. So I'm skipping that. I'm going through my leaf. And then on this side, I'm going to go through the 3 seed beads at the very bottom of my top leaf here. So that's the 11-0. That is that last 11-0 and then the 2 before it. So I just came through the hole in my bead and went down here past through the 3 last seed beads. So my thread is coming out of this first 11-0 here that I want to start working with. So from now on, I'm only using the 11-0s that we used to attach leaf to leaf. And you'll see here they kind of come in like a little pattern here. Kind of sort of like this little zigzag kind of pattern. So I'm coming out of this first bead, this first 11-0, and I'm going to pick up 5 15-0s. And now I'm going to go to the next 11-0, and we're going in order of sort of how we come across them on the bracelet here, starting at the top and going to the bottom. So this one here is slightly above this other one here to the side. So we're going to start here and kind of work our way in sort of like a zigzag winding around the project. So I've got my 5 seed beads on. And I'm on the right side here. So on the left side, I'm going to go down through the 11-0 on the left side now. Coming out, starting on the right and going over to the left side. Now I'm going to pick up another 5 seed beads. And you can play around with these numbers. I think 4 might work better for some of you. But I'm going to pick up another 5 here. And now the next 11-0 that I come across, that was part of those original 11-0s I picked up. Right here, I'm going to go through this 11-0. And I'm going to pick up another 5 seed beads. And I'm going to cross over to the right hand side here and go down through the 11-0 here. And now I'm going to go almost straight down here. I'm going to pick up another 5 seed beads and go down through my next 11-0. And I'm going to continue this pattern, adding my 15-0s in this sort of zigzag pattern and going down through only the beads, only those 11-0s that I added to connect my leaves. And you can see here I'm following the outline of the leaves themselves. So that should give you a good indication of where you want to be, which 11-0s you're going through. So I'm going to continue here adding this sort of zigzag of 15-0s down through my project. So again here, the very last leaf bead is going to be a little bit different just because you don't have the other bead, the other leaf bead here attached to it. So I've got my 5 seed beads. And because I don't have that 11-0 sitting between this LeafDuo and another LeafDuo, I'm just going to simply take my 5 seed beads and wherever they land, I'm going to just go through the 11-0 directly below them. So I'm just passing through the 11-0 directly below where they end. And now I'm going to go back through these 5 seed beads here. And now there's a couple different ways that you can now finish this. before we add the clasp on. You can zigzag sort of back through here and just run through all the beads, and that will bring them a little tighter together and give yourself a smoother line. Or you can, in between your sections of 5, oops, let me bring this up. In between your sections of 5 here, you can add a little something if you'd like to. So here I'm going to go through the 5, and then I'm going to pass on through the next 5. And so you can see once I do that, it just cinches those 2 strings of 5 beads closer together, and it'll give me a smoother line running up the center. Now, the other thing you can do here is if you want to add a little bit more embellishment, a little something here, instead of going through all 5 seed beads, we can go through 4, so just the first 4. And then we can pick up a seed bead if you want to add that color seed bead, or you can pick something different. And then skip over a 15-0 and go through the next 4 seed beads. And so this way, I'm adding a little bit more interest, something here at the base of my leaf. So here's a connection here. Here's my next connection. Now I'm going to continue and go through the next 4 of my 15-0s. And if I want to here again, I can pick up a seed bead and I can add that seed bead in there, or I'll show you what it looks like with a little crystal. A little 2 or 3 millimeter crystal should be about the size that you need. So I've got a tiny crystal here, and then I'll skip over a 15-0 and go through the next 4 15-0s. And as I give that a little pull, I can rest a crystal in there. Crystals do get a little bit big and bulky for this, so I would try to stick to a really tiny crystal, but you can always play around with any kind of bead that you want to add in this here. So I'm going to continue, and I'm going to continue up here, finish the center, and I'll show you what I've done with it once I'm done. I finished adding my beads to the center of my bracelet, and I actually settled on these 3 millimeter pearls. So in the last clip I was talking about, as you go through and connect your strings of 5 seed beads, I was talking about when you get over your leaf bead here, going through the first 4 seed beads, skipping 1, because as you go through the first 4, you pick up whatever bead you're going to have in the center here. So for me, this is the pearl, and then you're going to skip seed beads on the other string of 5 and go through the remaining beads. So if you are a little confused, just go back through that last clip and watch where I talk about that. With these 3 millimeter beads, what I did was I passed through the first 3 in my string of 5, picked up my pearl, skipped over 2, and then went through the last 3 on the other string of 5. So I know it might be hard to see here, but below my bead here, I'm going to have this little U shape here of seed beads, and I have 2 beads on either side, 2 beads from either string of 5. So like I said, if you're a little confused, just go back and watch that last clip that I did where I talk about that. So now moving on. Now to do our clasp, I'm going to come all the way to the end here, and I chose to do a toggle clasp just because I love the look of a toggle clasp with this. It's a nice, simple, sort of airy look to it, and now you can get fancy. You can do all kinds of different things. Clasp Garden has some beautiful clasps with some pearls in them or some crystals that would look really nice with this. But today I'm just going to add this toggle clasp. So coming out the end here, I'm going to actually attach to the last 2 seed beads here. And I'm coming out through, you come out through either one. I'm going to pass through both of them here. So I'm coming out between the 2nd and 3rd seed bead. And for both ends of your clasp, you're going to do this the same way. On this end here, I'm going to attach it to my last 2 beads. On this end here, I'm going to attach it somewhere sort of in the middle here. So I'll just pick 2 beads on this end. Okay, there we go. So now I'm going to take my needle and thread and go through the loop on my toggle clasp. So I'm just passing through this loop, and I'm going to go through those 2 seed beads at the end, and I'm going to go through the loop on my toggle clasp again. Oops, off screen there. And through those 2 seed beads again. And in this manner, I'm just going to attach my toggle clasp pretty simply. I'm just looping around the clasp and going back through the seed beads. And that's a super easy way to connect it. If you have your own preferred method, of course, you can use whatever you're comfortable with or whatever you think is the most secure. I do like using wire guards if you're wondering about those, but sometimes they change the direction. They do change the direction that your clasp will be oriented. And I like using this method because it keeps the toggle clasp straight and it doesn't add extra bulk. But of course, the pro of using a wire guard is that then your clasp is not directly attached to your project. And if you lose your clasp, you can more easily replace it. If you need to fix your bracelet, it's easier to do that as well. So pros and cons to both. And we have lots of projects that use wire guards. So if you're curious about how to do that, you can just watch one of those other videos using the wire guards. So that's how I'm going to finish it. I'm going to go to my other end now. And I'm going to attach the bar end the exact same way. I'm just going to find a couple seed beads where it lines up and attach it just like I did with this. On the other side of my bracelet, I'm going to attach my bar, and I'm going to attach it the same way that I attached to the other side my little circle here, or my toggle circle. But on this side here, I need, because the bar is going to be pulled through the circle, it needs a little bit of a, like a runway almost, if you want to think of it like that. So I'm going to identify a couple beads here where I want to attach my clasp. And I'm going to actually use just a little ladder stitch here to extend those, to extend that section, or extend off of that section. So all I'm doing here is I went through those couple beads, picked up 2 more beads, and went back through those beads again. And so you can see here now I've added 2 beads on top of the 2 beads where I wanted to add my clasp. And you can make this longer if you want, but I did test it, and this is all the length that I'm going to need to make it really comfortable to pull this bar through the loop. So if you see here, I've got my bar, and as I pull it through the loop, if I can show this, the loop here on my bar that you're attaching your piece to actually is to come up partially through the clasp itself. So if you have something like thick here, like your bracelet, it's not going to be able to fit through your clasp. So that's why you do a little extension there and give it a little bit more room. So now I'm going to go through my clasp and attach just like I did on the other side here. Just attaching this bar to the other side of my clasp. And one of the nice things about toggle clasps is that there is no like right or wrong side. You don't have to worry about lining it up so that your two sides come together, like with a bar clasp or a clasp that's going to click into place like a pearl clasp. Those are very secure and they're great, but that's just one of the advantages to something as simple as a toggle is it is so simple, and so there's just a little less to consider when you're adding it on. So now I'm just going to tie off my thread, and don't mind my little thread pieces here. I'll burn those off once I'm completely done. So here is my bracelet now, and I'll show you here what I'm talking about with that toggle clasp, because the bar is actually going to go through the loop or circle here at the other end, and as I pull it through, see part of my project here is getting pulled into that loop, but because I gave it a little extra space, no worries there. And there it is. I think it's a lovely piece with just a really delicate look to it. And you can see here what that looks like on my wrist. So I hope you really enjoyed making this. I'd love to see what you come up with on your own. So please share it on Facebook if you get a chance to snap a picture and you get a chance to make this adorable delicate bracelet.